Welcome to season 3 of You Are Significant, the podcast where real stories are told by real people that create more awareness of your own significance. You were created on purpose for a purpose with seeds of greatness inside of you. Ready to grow? Let's get down to it. Hey, friends, welcome back to You Are Significant. I'm recording before Mother's Day has happened. So I don't know yet how my Mother's Day has gone, but a lot of times we are creating exactly what we're getting. And so for me, even though it's before Mother's Day at the time of this recording, I'm already planning to have a wonderful Mother's Day. Mother's Day is inside of me. It is not dependent on what my kids do or don't do, on what my husband does or doesn't do. It doesn't depend on even how I feel the day that I wake up and it's Mother's Day on Sunday. This is actually my choice. I can practice living in the emotion that I choose. It doesn't have to be something that just comes over me by accident. I believe that's why God taught us take every thought captive because our thoughts going to come in? Yes. Just randomly? Yes. But you get to decide, am I going to entertain that thought, think about this thought some more, feed this thought, think of reasons why this thought is true, or am I casting that thought out? That thought isn't going to serve me. That thought isn't who I am. That thought is not in alignment with where I'm going, who I'm becoming, my vision for my life. And so you get to decide if you are having a good Mother's Day or not. And actually, I'm thinking about releasing this episode early as a bonus because it feels like I want to equip you, and this episode could equip you to have a good Mother's Day. And you know what? These thoughts and this type of thinking applies to any holiday. To your birthday, your anniversary, your wedding anniversary, to any special day, you can decide it's going to be a good day. And what do you want that day to look like? Do you want to go eat somewhere? Do you want to stay in and order in? Do you want to cook something? What do you want to eat? Instead of just waiting for it to happen, how do you want to celebrate? What do you want to eat? Do you want flowers? You can just go buy the flowers you want or tell your husband or your child who's old enough to shop for you, hey, this is what I want. For me, I was wanting hydrangeas for Mother's Day. We're in a fairly new to us house. The house is not that old, and there was virtually no landscaping. Very little landscaping. The house we moved from was landscaped on all four sides, had a fence, and had landscaping, if you will, flowers and bushes, raspberry bushes, blackberry bushes, blueberry bushes, planted in the yard in different places along the fence row. I had irises. Oh my goodness, it was just buttercups. I really loved my yard and it was just a joy. So guess what? We get to build this yard the way we want it to be because there wasn't already a lot of landscaping here. And so I told my husband for Mother's Day, I would like you and our son to, he had already suggested he wanted to build me some flower bed boxes that are a little bit higher. He's hoping it'll keep our dog out and the dog won't get in them and dig and tear them up. I'm not sure, but it's worth a try. And so I said, hey, for Mother's Day, you could just build that flower bed, which he has already said he wants to make it a little more like a flower box and elevated, and buy me the hydrangea bushes and put those in. That would be great. I would rather have that than a bouquet of flowers that's 60, 80, $100. I don't know. Maybe it wouldn't be that much, but that's going to die, right? So I would rather us go get the hydrangeas because they're selling them right now, and I will always look at those and know those were a Mother's Day gift. I might forget what year because of how I think and my brain thinks, but I will remember those were a Mother's Day present to me when, like, the second spring we lived here. So I am so excited for Mother's Day. And at the same time, there's a little bit of sadness because of my mother. My mother has passed away, and I still rejoice that she is with Jesus and she is not suffering anymore. But I miss her. I miss her very much. And I miss when she was well enough that we could sit and watch movies. She loved to watch movies with me. My whole growing up, we watched Cary Grant movies, Ginger Roger movies. We love to watch old classics, even old classic TV shows like Father Knows Best or Leave It to Beaver. We did watch Andy Griffith some, but not as much as some people in Alabama. I grew up all over the place. My dad was a minister, and we moved every couple years until I was 10. And then we moved to Illinois, to central Illinois, which, if you're familiar with Illinois, Illinois really has three cultures: a northern culture up around Chicago and northern Illinois, a Midwestern culture in the middle part of the state, and a Southern culture in the south part of Illinois. They have a Southern accent and everything. Now, if you go to Alabama or Georgia, the accent is heavier, but they have a Southern accent in Southern Illinois. So, very different cultures as you go up and down the state. But I grew up in central Illinois in the Midwest, and I loved it. Everybody was so nice. So many people had come there from different states, southern states, Alabama, Tennessee. They had come from Missouri, and they came to work at Caterpillar. Caterpillar Tractor Company was headquartered there and had five or six different major factories, kind of like what's happening in Alabama with Toyota, where there's several different major manufacturing facilities depending on what they're making. Like there's an engine one, there's several for Toyota. So these were, I think, closer together where I grew up for Caterpillar tractors. And but I miss my mom, and I miss getting to watch movies with her, and I miss getting to bake cookies with her at we always bake cookies for a big New Year's party, New Year's Eve party, and we had a cookie press, and they would make all these shapes. And I just think of it, even though it's not Christmas, it's Mother's Day, I still think of the things that we used to do together. What kind of memories do you have with your mom? And I feel so blessed because I know as I have coached women, mentored women in 12 step recovery, coached women in weight loss, and really all of that involves life coaching, that every person doesn't have a mother that even loved them. And maybe that's you as you listen to this. Maybe for you, Mother's Day is really a very hard holiday to go through because you're still having to deal with your hurt. And hurt manifests different ways. For some people, it's anger, a lot of anger. For some people, it's a lot of sadness, even depression. But if that's you, I encourage you, try the 12 step recovery, because 12 step recovery is such an effective way. I believe it's better than counseling. I think sometimes you need both. But my husband and I, we tried counseling for years and it didn't help. It never got to the bottom of what was going on. And once we went to 12 step recovery, we were able to get to the root and process it through. And we did a Bible based 12 step recovery. We still do. And we process it with Christ. And that's where the power it really truly is in the healing. So I am so grateful that I had a mother that loved me and spent a lot of time with me. And I wanted to just share some of those stories with you today. But the thing that has kept coming back to my mind that I also wanted to share with you is forgiveness. And I think this is linked to Mother's Day because there's no matter how good of a mother you had, there's always going to be something to forgive. And maybe if even if your mother was so amazing that you can't think of something that you need to forgive her for, this applies to a different relationship in your life. So, forgiveness is kind of an anomaly, right? What do I mean by that? It's almost like, what is forgiveness? Can I touch it? Can I pull on it? Can I pick it up? What is forgiveness? It's so abstract and it's hard to understand. And we do have verses in the Bible about forgiveness, but like, how do I apply forgiveness in my life? And I can remember really struggling to understand forgiveness as an adult. I knew as a child my mom and dad taught me to say I'm sorry and to say it sincerely, not grudgingly. They would make me say it over again if I was like I'm sorry. Did you ever have to do that? Where you said, I'm sorry, and you really weren't sorry, and your mom or your dad said, no, say it again, be sweet, be kind, and say, I'm sorry. And so I learned to say, I'm sorry, and I learned how to have a good heart and what that feeling was in my heart what a sincere apology meant. But as an adult, when you're wronged and you're hurt, how do you put forgiveness into action? And the Bible says to forgive up to 70 times 7. And that number represents completeness. Yes, infinity and beyond, like Buzz Lightyear. Infinity and beyond. Like, I'm just going to have to forgive and forgive. There's no limit to this. Okay, Jesus. But it also represents completeness, where you truly are you ever going to really be able to forget? If it is hurtful enough, no, you may never forget. Your mind may remember, but if you let go of the hurt, letting go of the hurt doesn't mean what they did was right. It doesn't mean that God isn't going to hold them accountable, but God said, vengeance is mine. I will repay, saith the Lord. And it's weird to quote that in a Mother's Day episode, but forgiveness may need to be applied to your mother. If she didn't care for you, if she neglected you, if she abused you, then we have to let it go. It doesn't mean what she did was right. What it means is you are giving it to God, you're surrendering it to higher power, to God, and you are not carrying that on yourself anymore. It's too heavy. Jesus said, my yoke is easy, my burden is light. And he also wants you to cast your cares on him because he cares for you. And so when we look at these scriptures and we put them together, then it gives us freedom. When we forgive, we have freedom. I'm not having to carry it. I'm not supposed to take vengeance and pay them back. So I don't need to carry this around angry and hurt and waiting to pay it back. I think sometimes the reason we carry hurt is we're wanting to protect ourselves from it happening again. And it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So if you walk around angry and really harboring what happened to you and trying not to let it happen again, you actually are attracting more of the same faster. You're magnetizing what you're thinking about because by thinking about it, you're creating it into your future. You're connecting even on a molecular level with more of the same and even worse. So for your healing, you have to let it go. What would it hurt to try? Just saying, you know what? I'm not carrying that anymore. I forgive. I do. And one of the keys to this that I teach my students in 12 step is find one thing that you love about that person. Maybe it's just that she had pretty blue eyes. Maybe everything about that person is like nails on a chalkboard, but they had pretty blue eyes. And you could just focus on, you know what? She had pretty blue eyes. And I really appreciate that about her. If this was your mother, maybe she used to sew clothes for you. Even though she did abusive things that were not right and not okay, but maybe she sewed clothes for you and you knew you were loved, even though it was very imperfect relationship and even a very imperfect childhood. But you can think back and you know what? She cared for me in her own way, and I can look back and appreciate that. So again, it doesn't excuse what was wrong, but it frees you, especially once you've processed all the hurts, then you are free to remember that at least that one good thing. And then when she comes to mind, you can shift out of the painful memory to that loving memory. And now you're empowering your mind. You have created a tool to take that thought captive, not dwell on the painful memory. Give that back to Jesus every time Satan tries to put it back on your lap. Here, think about this. No, I've given that to Jesus. And then I'm bringing in this beautiful memory that I have of my mother or that relationship where I was hurt. So, happy Mother's Day. I hope this helps you to find joy because you have been gifted. If you are a Christian, you have been gifted the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, and all 10 fruit within the fruit of the Spirit. And so, joy is something God wants you to live in, move in, have freedom through Christ in. He doesn't want you to be bound by sadness, bound by anger. He wants you to have freedom in your joy. So I hope this episode blesses you and brings to mind at least one beautiful memory that you have with your mother. And I would love to hear it. Please drop your memory of your mother my way in the comments of this podcast. Or I'm on Facebook at the Darlene Lee and on Instagram at the Darlene Lee as well. So hope you have a wonderful and beautiful Mother's Day. Thank you for tuning in to You Are Significant. I hope that this episode helped you to embrace your own God-given purpose. Please share this out with a friend and remember to subscribe. Thank you so much for listening, and until next time, walk in faith, find the joy, and stand in your own significance.